Hi, I'm Andy Acton.
And I'm Chris Strevens.
This is Dentology, the Business of Dentistry podcast. So, it's podcast recording day and we have no guest.
That's because we got something interesting to tell people about the last 24 years, really.
It is. So, 24 years ago, we bought Frank Tone Associates.
We must have been like 10 or something. Okay,
Well,
maybe I'm lying, yeah.
But no, and I just wonder whether there's merit in just going through, like, what are the key things that we've learned from being in business for 24 years? Because one, I think as a general principle, I'm not sure that business gets enjoyed, celebrated as much as it perhaps should. So I think that's a message to everybody to kind of, enjoy your success more than perhaps you do and celebrate it more. But a lot of people that listen to this are either younger dentists with an ambition to perhaps own or buy a business one day. We have quite a lot of students that listen to it who have aspirations in terms of that. And there'll be people who own businesses that might be able to perhaps listen to some of the things that we've done, and they might be able to tweak some of their own strategy in terms of how they're working and how it's going. Yeah,
and I think also it's interesting, isn't it, really, when you look back on 24 years, we bought it, and the truth was, whilst we had lots of commercial experience in the bank, when you come and run your own business,
it doesn't set you up.
Totally different, isn't it? It's like a world apart. So I think we went from small to big. We've managed that process. We've had some failures along the way.
Yeah, but
actually, it's very relatable to someone running and owning their own dental practice or any business.
But
really.
Also, I think it's going back to. We worked together in a bank, and you're right, we did a lot of commercial work with business owners, and it's a bit like kind of learning to swim from the side of a swimming pool. At some point you're going to have to jump in and get wet. And if you've never owned or run a business, you can go on all the courses you want, you can watch as many YouTube videos as you want, you can advise from the background, but until you're in it and it's your responsibility and it's you that sign the loan guarantee form and it's the people are working for you and you have to set the strategy that they will follow. There's quite a lot of burden and responsibility that comes with that.
Well, I still remember avidly, and it's one of those memories, isn't it, that I think we bought on the 2nd of October 2000, and we were coming up to Christmas 2000. So what would that be? October, November, 3 months in. And we realised at the beginning of December we didn't have any money to pay people.
Yeah.
I mean, fortunately, there weren't many people to pay. And then we had that one deal that we got over the line.
On Christmas Eve.
Yeah, effectively gave us the money to pay for it. And it's funny, isn't it? Because probably when people look back or look at what we do now, they probably don't even think about there were those times that we had those issues when we started, because we were new. We didn't know what we were doing, really.
And it's that thing that we so often, you don't know what you don't know. So
no, right.
Until a problem presents itself, you had no idea that it could be an issue. And the nature of businesses, we see so many people who have been in business a long while and make it look relatively easy. And you don't understand how did they get to that point where they now know what to do.
Yeah.
And the truth is, it's through millions of little tiny failures.
Yeah.
Loads of things go wrong. You have to find the answer and fix it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how you go about doing it.
It's not from a book.
But the difference is they're lived experiences. They're things that you have to go through, and it's like, flip, that hurt. I never want that to happen again. So what do we need to put in place to make sure that doesn't happen again? And I guess for us, it came quite early because we had no cash and we had to kind of understand more what was going on.
Holy crap. It was weird, wasn't it? So when you look back at it, I mean, what would you think, if you could, I don't know, let's do it. Let's think about top 8. I know everyone does a top 10, but I always feel that's a bit naff, really. Because, have you noticed? I know this is totally casual aside. Have you noticed lots of these new drama series? They're like 6 episodes, 7 episodes, 8 episodes. It throws me because I'm expecting to have a 10th, and it stops at 7.
Never sure how much to watch.
Yeah, I'm like, what's going on? I don't want that. So, what would you think?
I think if we're going to do an 8, I think for me to start, I think you need a strong team. I think you need a bunch of people, and team isn't necessarily just people who are on your payroll. Like in the early days for us, our team were the people that supported us with IT. The person that helped us get our website live. You know, it's not literally just people who are in your office that you're paying and are employed by you. But I think in building a strong team, it's good to understand that it's unlikely you're going to assemble your top team at the first time of doing it.
No.
What I mean by that is, and we had it. You employ people, certain people join the team, they're not a good fit.
No,
so they go.
They move on.
And then and quite often it's a mutual thing. Those people don't fit and you don't want them to fit. So they go. So I think for people listening, that if you're struggling with your team, finding a good team doesn't just mean you bring people in, they stay and that's it. You might have a bit of churn. You might have people come and go. And we had that. People come and go. But over time, you start to build out this strength of people. And I also find that within our businesses, we've ended up with quite a strong culture. And when new people join, they either fit or they don't. And they find out quite quickly.
Yeah.
Because I think the team almost kind of welcome them and accept them, or they're like, I just don't think they're one of us. So I think for me, I think a strong team is critical.
Yeah. I do you remember those days when when before emails really, and we used to send all those practice details out, and we engaged our children to basically an evening would be spent folding.
Would that be child labour?
Yeah, no. We paid them. Do you remember? We paid them very much, and we would fold up those things and put them in envelopes and then get them franked. Do you remember that?
But that's bootstrapping. I think back
actually, I'm not even sure we had a franking machine. I think we might have used stamps.
It was stamps, but I think back to. Very many people will be familiar with Gymshark and Ben Francis, who's still a young guy. I don't know if he's at 30 yet, but he's still a young guy.
And a billionaire.
And but there's pictures of him literally stuffing shirts into envelopes in his mum's lounge. So, and again, it goes to this thing that when you see businesses that are more grown up, it's hard to kind of relate to what it was like.
What it was like in the early days.
Lots of business in the early days. There'll be dental practice owners who set up squats, who were in there with rollers, painting the walls at the last minute just to get it look just right. And then come Monday morning, on go the scrubs, on go the mask, and they're a dentist. And nobody sees that bit that kind of sits behind the scenes. No, totally.
I think also what fits with that is you have to embrace change, don't you? You have to be reactive to change.
It's coming at you, whether you like it or not. Yeah. It's coming at you.
And it doesn't mean that you have to change to every change. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But you have to be accepting of it as in a concept, and then weigh it up and evaluate it rather than either reject it out of hand. Because what was that quote from Henry Ford, wasn't it? Henry Ford said, if people had asked me if I'd have asked people what they wanted, they'd have said they wanted faster horses. And I think, when you look at it, I think, just thinking about the mailing thing, remember one of our big evolutions was we got a franking machine.
Oh,
technology. It sped up the whole process.
Yeah.
And then, do you remember we then used to use a mailing house?
Yeah.
And that was a new concept. And it's funny, isn't it? You look at those things, and I think Frank, I still remember Frank. So there was a Frank Taylor and his business partner, Sandra Rhodes, who we bought the business from, for listeners. And Frank was not very into emails, was he?
No, it would never happen.
Frank's great comment was, emails, they'll just fade away. Well, he was wrong on that. He was right on quite a lot of other things, but he was wrong on that. But you just have to go with it. But I think the danger is, isn't it? Sometimes you can change for change's sake rather than actually maybe analyse what the implications of that change. So then you make a valued based decision to change or amend or whatever, or reject. I mean, not everything's great, isn't it?
And that's okay as well.
That's right.
I think for me, a third one would be staying focused on why you did it in the first place, because I think there's so many different agendas and influences and biases. Everybody's trying to kind of position you to suit them. And I think it's kind of being a little bit brutal as a business owner and say, well, why did we do it? And I remember really clearly the conversation we had when we both left our jobs in the city. And we said, wouldn't it be amazing if we could earn the same money but have more time? At the time, we both had young families. We said, if we could earn the same money but have more time available, that would be a massive win. And there were days when, you're working your backside off and you're doing things that are just crazy to get by. But you remind yourself that actually this will settle down and we'll get more time. And actually that worked. And then, so that was kind of a personal thing why we did it. And then I think from a business point of view, we've always talked about changing people's lives. And whether you're buying a practice, selling a practice, arranging finance, you know, trying to improve your digital marketing, well, whatever it might be, we genuinely do change people's lives. Because if you own a business and you're 10, 12 years in, you're suffering owner fatigue and you want to sell, and we help that person sell, that is going to change their life.
Yeah, for not just them, but for the buyer as well.
Well, it could de-stress them. It could free them up to go into other ventures. And from the buyer's point of view, there's another life changed as well, because they've gone from being a self-employed associate in many cases to now being a business owner and all the fun and the toil that comes with that. So I think going back to that, why did you do it in the first place is important, because not every day is fun.
No,
most days should be, but not
challenging days.
Not every day is fun. And in the good days, you just ride that crest and you enjoy it. But when that kind of crest dips and you're in a lull, you need to remind yourself why it is you did it in the first place.
I also think that focus thing is really important, isn't it? Because by having a focus that we always had a focus, it meant that everything relates to that focus. The time that things maybe haven't quite worked is possibly when we've gone a little bit off-piste.
Yeah.
When we sort of thought, I tell you what, we'll try, do you remember we tried to do podiatry, chiropodist valuations, because we thought, why not? And the answer is we ran it for a couple of years.
That was a pain in the foot.
Boom. And but we cut it. Yeah. But we thought it'd be a good idea, and it just didn't work. Yeah. And then everything else we've done is focused around dentistry. To one, whether it be finance, insurances,
which is a market management. We understand. Yeah. It's a market we're known in. There's a natural fit.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the other things, it sort of fits yet again with what we're just talking about and having a focus, is there's no point us having a focus if none of our team know what that focus is. So it's almost a bit like, can you work out what Chris and Andy want to do this week? And I think that having communication, internally and externally, is so important. It's relationship building, isn't it? It's a chance also, I think, where we've been very good, and I will pat ourselves on the back, is we are very good, I think, at asking our team's views and opinions and thoughts. It doesn't necessarily mean we agree with them, and it doesn't necessarily mean we will divert from our focus. But what it does mean is by making sure we've got that communication right, we then can communicate to them why we maybe want to do something or why we don't want to do something. I'm just thinking, when you think some of the things we've done and some of our new initiatives, we always explain the reason we're doing it. We don't just say, hey, by the way, we're going to do, referrals for capital allowances on freeholds. Because people go, well, why would you do that? So we always explain why. We always communicate why. Because I think also then it just shows a better clarity of thought and also shows how it all links together. Do you think?
Oh, no, I agree. And I think the temptation is to communicate externally and not to communicate internally.
Yeah.
But actually, I think if you want people to work with purpose, they need to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. Or else it's just a group of people in a room doing something they're told to do.
Yeah. It's a bit like that core, isn't it? It should be that, they should know what our core is.
Yeah. Another for me is the continuous learning thing. And it's
do you mean some people don't?
Well, no, it's funny, isn't it? I think back to in the days when we used to work in banks. The banks would send us on courses, week-long courses to learn a particular topic. And there was a groan of going on another course. And you then move into an environment when you're responsible for training and development of your team and continually doing it yourself. And they're paying for it. And it's extraordinarily expensive. But it really is, it has to be seen as an investment, not an expense. But also continuous learning doesn't just be one of those things that sits with a lecturer in a classroom environment. The amount of new tactics and techniques that we've worked on in our business, from developing new workflows, new IT systems. We were talking to some guys earlier on today about a new IT implementation, different marketing techniques. All that is learning. And I think it's more to do with the mindset of having an open mind of things are going to change and I'm going to learn new things and I don't quite know where I'm going to apply them and where they're going to fit. But if you just stay open to the concept of things will change and I need to learn new things ongoing, you're not going to shut things down. Because going back to your previous point about communication with the team, our team spans the ages from 19 at the youngest to 63 at the top end. That's a massive breadth of experience and knowledge. And if we believe that we know the answers, we're going to miss out on what, slightly older people are seeing in the market, but also younger people in terms of perhaps digital marketing, communication techniques, attention spans, all the things that you kind of really need to understand if you want to communicate well with your team. So I think the communication and continuous learning, I think they're kind of good bedfellows. I think
you're right, because just because you've learnt it doesn't mean, one, you will be any good at it, and two, it does change, and three, it does evolve, and also there's always new learnings. I mean, we always used to say, didn't we? We would go to at least a seminar or some workshop once a year. For even if it was normally it was done to do dentistry, and we go because we used to say, didn't we? We'd sit in a room with 200 or 300 other people. We would guarantee
you'd come out with a nugget.
There'd be something that we'd go, that
there'd be
something
have a go you could use.
We could try that in what we want to do. What else can I think of? Patience. I think having patience and sort of patience almost sounds like a passivity. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like you sound like, just sit around waiting for something to happen. But I think what we're talking about is almost persistence. You could link the two together. And that doesn't necessarily mean being a real pain in the arse and just getting up everyone's nose and constantly saying, have you done that? Have you done that? Have you done that? Have you done that? But I think it's about going back to those things we were saying about that if you get the focus right, you get the feedback right, you get the understanding right, and you get the implementation right, sometimes you just have to be patient for what that end result might be. I mean, it's a real tricky one, isn't it, really? Because sometimes it's patience and sometimes people might perceive it as laziness because you haven't done anything about it. So it's quite an interesting one. I mean, for me, I think you just have to make sure that whatever you're going to do, if you're going to be patient, you need to keep rechecking the reason you did it. And, as we've done so many times, we've produced things that haven't quite gone the way that we thought they'd go. But then we've reviewed, revisited, refined, relaunched. Reviewed, refined, revisited, relaunched. And then I'm there's a couple of things, haven't we, that we've tried that it maybe took the fourth iteration for it to actually land, because what we thought and what our team might have thought just wasn't actually in that version 1. Version 4.0 worked, but version 1.0 didn't work.
I think it's a really powerful lesson for people because the world is getting quicker and quicker. And I see a general impatience. I see a general lack of being prepared to wait, particularly younger people, desperate to get to the next stage, have success, tick the box, move on to the next thing. But there's a real beauty in things taking time.
Was it 7%? Was it 7 seconds or something? Then we lose interest unless it's gathered.
Yeah, we've been talking for 13, 14 minutes.
There's probably
nobody listening to us at this point. But I think having that kind of slowly watching something and letting it evolve and changing it, it doesn't mean that, like you say, it doesn't mean that you're being lazy. You're actually working towards something and trying to make it better, but over a period of time and accepting that. And so many people just see these remarkable success stories online where it appears that literally within 3 months it went from zero to being where it is. And in 99% of the cases, it's not the truth. It's just a story that's being told. Yet to hear that it's okay to be patient and take time and refine and improve, and you might not get product market fit or service market fit immediately, but keep chugging away and working on it, because when it works, it will probably work really well.
So there's no such thing as an overnight success or something, isn't it? I'm trying to think of some band or something that probably worked the circuits for years and then suddenly became popular.
Well, I think the Beatles apparently they spent a long time working endless sessions. in Germany. I think lots of them.
that's
It
true,
was in
yeah.
like strip clubs and places
Cologne
in Germany.
and places like that.
They
yeah.
worked session after session, and when they left Liverpool, apparently they were mediocre. They went to Germany and they just put in their 10,000 hours.
Refined their art.
And by the time they came back, everyone was like, "My goodness, they are so tight and they are so good." But it's because they did the practice, and they weren't an overnight success. They just did their practice somewhere else and came back.
And the patience.
Yeah.
To keep going.
Yeah.
And the focus.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness!
It
All joins together. Bloody hell! Scary. What other ones? I think we've sort of mentioned it, but it's making sure that you nurture relationships.
Yeah.
I think it's almost a bit like a superpower in the fact of you never know who you'll meet and when you'll meet them and in what circumstances.
Yeah.
But as long as you can, what's that phrase that used to be, wasn't it? I remember they said in the bank was, be nice to people on the ladder on the way up or something, because you never know when they're on the way down when they might try and beat you off the ladder or something. And I think there's so many people. I mean, there's people that we have fallen out with over a specific thing, but it's the specific thing, like a transaction, for instance.
And I think it's okay
but it's not the person.
No, and I think it's okay to have commercial disagreements.
I think that's it. Yeah, don't make it personal.
Exactly. The nature of life is that everyone's trying to achieve their own goals for their business, their life. And sometimes that will be incompatible with what the other person's trying to achieve. But that's okay. It's okay to get to a stage where you just disagree. But there's a difference between disagreeing and falling out. And I think for me, nurturing relationships is kind of linked back to the patience thing. They take time. They don't happen overnight. But I think the real value of nurturing relationships is it makes it way easier to have hard conversations.
Yes.
If you get on well with everybody and everything's fine, it's great. Because if you're always having nice conversations, sure, the relationship's important. But I think when a relationship is really important is if you need to have a hard conversation with somebody, you've got something to fall back on because there's trust and integrity, and you've built something over a period of time. And particularly within our market, dentistry is quite a small place. Therefore, maintaining good relationships with people across the profession is important because you want to be seen within that space. As
I think it works. It's interesting, isn't it, when you think about it? It works on many levels. It works on, say, for instance, external relationships. It works on internal relationships within your own business. That if you've got a good relationship with people, you can have those challenges, or you can also challenge them to do something. Or when you want to introduce something new or different, then you've got them on board. But I was, as you were talking, I was thinking, it also is relevant to our personal relationships.
Yeah.
If our partners, and I don't mean business partners, if you are constantly disappearing and constantly always working and never around, that's not good. That's not good. And if you've nurtured your relationship properly and sort of almost explained the reasons behind and where's it going, I just feel that would help your personal circumstances, as opposed to if you don't. The danger is you sort of like end up almost being not vilified is not quite the right word, but your home life could be different.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And I think the last one, number 8 for me, is that about mental health.
Right.
Running a business is hard work. I mean, we've been fortunate. We've got other business partners to kind of lean on and help and support. So that's great. But there's a lot of solopreneurs out there. There's lots of, and particularly dental practice owners. Most dental practices are owned by a sole principal. And that's hard. And people need to look after themselves, because there's that whole thing, you can't help somebody else unless you've helped yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup, isn't it? It's like when you kind of get on an aeroplane, they will say to you, if we have a problem, put your own life jacket on first. Because for that very reason, that if you're not in good shape and you're not looking after yourself, you can't help other people. And I think within business, it's very easy to always kind of, feed yourself last, always have a drink after everybody else. But if you're not in good shape, you can't support your team, you can't support your family, you can't grow your business. And I just think that as a business owner, it can be a bit dripping tap. The stresses can just build over time. You don't always realise they're there because you just get used to carrying a slightly heavier weight.
What's that? It's the frog in the frying pan, isn't it?
In the boiling water, exactly. And it does. The temperature just goes up. And I think lots of people have had it hard. We've got to go back several years now, but it's fairly recent history with COVID. And then since then, kind of everybody had that sort of bounce back period. And we had that weird period of inflation and everything around there. But lots of people, they kind of feel that they're sort of just moving from one situation to the next. And you somehow need to create this bubble around yourself to create this kind of, this well-being attitude that says...
It's like a zorb.
But actually, and I think some of it sits around having the confidence and the ability to say no. So rather than just constantly feeling, if I say no, what if another opportunity never comes up? And what if that patient never comes back? Or what if the phone never rings again? And it's having the confidence in what you're doing and being like, no, actually, I've got to stay in really good shape so I can deliver my best when I'm seeing that patient or when I'm with my team, rather than just spreading yourself so thin that there's nothing left of you.
I think also, if you're a bit flaky, for a better choice of words, as the leader, that's going to make your team, so your team feel a little bit unsure.
Oh yeah,
because if even though you might want to be a very flat hierarchy and you don't want to be I'm in charge, everybody knows you're in charge.
Yeah.
So therefore, when you maybe start to potentially get a bit flaky, I can't think of another choice of words really, or you start to exhibit maybe stress or whatever it is. It's not very reassuring for your team.
Well, they look to you for leadership,
and then they start to suffer,
confidence, and all that. So, it's about you, but it's also the projection of how you then pass it on to other people as well.
You're almost like a mirror, aren't they? You know, whatever you show, they'll reflect.
And I think sometimes in business, you forget that where you do have a flat hierarchy, people are still aware of who's in charge.
Yeah, everybody knows.
So they are kind of indirectly always looking and checking to make sure that they're working in an environment that's being well led. There is confidence around the strategy. They know where they're going. Everybody's proud to be in that place. But that does come back to, if you don't feel great about yourself, it's going to become increasingly difficult to project those positive values into the environment that you're in, whether that's at home, whether that's at work,
that is so true. Exactly.
Because we're all joined up. It's not like
you're not like
I'm
a different
like
person,
no,
are you? Like a different
it's
person.
always the same. But,
the people say, I don't run my team. We're very flat. Just call me Raj. Well, the answer is, they might call you Raj, but they all know that you're still the boss.
Exactly. No, I think that's good. And I think, genuinely, those 8 areas, kind of, it's very hard to distill down 24 years of business ownership experience. But I think those are the ones that, for us, probably have stood out, have been the things that have really helped us kind of shape the direction we're going at. And hopefully from that, people will take value as well.
Makes you realise, doesn't it, when you just sit and chat, how much we know and how much we've done, even though you don't think about it. And I think that's the same with all business owners. They forget the sort of skill set they've got and just get on with it. And I think the answer is getting on with it is great, but maybe try and get yourself a bit more.
You're right. And I think
it's very interesting.
And I think for people that are more experienced, perhaps they'll use this as an opportunity to reflect on who they were when they started and where they are now. Because we've changed a lot. There's so many things that we do differently, and we've learned through that process. And everybody will have their own journey. Everybody would have done it in a slightly different way. But sometimes it's quite nice just to pause and be like, okay, so where am I now relative to where I was? Because it's easy when you're in the weeds to think it's all hard. But when
that's what I was thinking.
When you go back to the beginning, you're like, okay, so would I have imagined that some of these things would have happened when I started? No. And from that, you can sort of put out the good stuff.
No, brilliant.
No, really good. Really good.
Excellent.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Dentology, where we discuss the business of dentistry. If you like what you heard, please do subscribe where you found this episode. That would be amazing. And also follow us on Instagram.